Hello, everyone. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Allison.
And this is Nerd of the Week, a randomly generated fandom podcast. Allison decided to sound like an old Russian lady right before in our countdown. So that's the laughter.
It's a 3, 2, 1, go. Or is it like Mario?
Let's go.
It's me and Mario. 3, 2, 1, go.
Oh no.
We also discovered in our pre-recording conversation that I can do a pretty good Southern Belle accent.
It's pretty legit.
I don't know if I can do it on command here. Gosh, I don't know what to say. Maybe it'll come out later in the episode, so stay tuned, listener. Maybe you'll hear me be a Southern Belle. Oh, bless your heart. I'll be a little Southern Belle later on. There we go. That wasn't too good. I'm sorry. Not a great example. Maybe I'll cut that out. Okay. That's not what we're talking about.
I mean, Southern Bells and Velvet kind of go together. It's fine.
Maybe.
Sorry, generator. I took your thunder. The word of the week is Velvet.
Excuse me. I hoped I could speak.
Oh, no, she's mad at me. Oh, God. I messed up. This might be a Nerd of the Week podcast with Allison and the generator next week.
Can you even imagine?
She's just very mad. Anyway.
Oh my gosh. I think we're going to be okay. She can stew. We'll come back. We'll come back.
I'm sorry. Okay, I have typed in the definition of velvet into Google.
Okay.
So
I will tell you what I think Google says. I think Google says it is a fabric made of a medium pile texture that is on a silk backing, I think.
Pretty close. Closely woven fabric of silk, cotton, or nylon that has a thick, short pile on one side.
Nice. Okay.
The other is the soft, downy skin that covers a deer's antler while it's growing.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
Aw.
And the images are like, they make sense this time. It's just various pictures of velvety fabric.
Nice. Well, I'm super proud of myself for using the word pile in the definition.
I was impressed too. I was like, oh yeah, that is the word. That is what that word is.
Thank you. I'm really getting the hang of these Google definitions. They should hire me.
All right. So, pending Allison's new career, I have brought an old movie to the forefront called National Velvet.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. It is the quintessential original horse girl movie.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
You were immediately excited and then immediately disappointed.
I had never heard of it, and then I was immediately disappointed.
So,
okay, tell me about this horse girl movie.
Yeah, because the main character's name is Velvet. It doesn't really have anything to do with, like, the actual, fabric-y velvet.
That's okay. I didn't think it would.
So, it's a 1944, there we go.
That early? Oh, my God.
Mm-hmm. Technicolor, it was like when Technicolor was big, like The Wizard of Oz and that kind of stuff, starring Mickey Rooney, Donald Crisp, Angela Lansbury, Anne Reverie, Reginald Owen, and a really young Elizabeth Taylor. And Elizabeth Taylor is
star-studded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Elizabeth Taylor is Velvet Brown, who is a 12-year-old horse crazy girl who lives with her family. I think it's Sussex, England. I'm not 100% sure. It's somewhere in England. And she has two older sisters and a younger brother. And the first couple of scenes are them just like establishing like life in this tiny little village. And like it's one room schoolhouse style. And Velvet always just wants to be interacting with horses, and like that is her entire personality. And her older sister, Edwina, is Angela Lansbury, and Edwina is like boy crazy and always off like chasing the various heartthrobs in town. And then her other sister is someone, Mallory, Malovia, something like that. Some M name.
Those are very different. Okay.
I think they call her Mally in the movie.
Okay.
And then she's got a younger brother, Donald. And so the first scene is them in the schoolhouse, and it's setting up for it to be like whatever the equivalent of spring break in the 40s was. And
spring break.
Yeah. And there are some of the boys, because it's the girls and the boys are in different schoolhouses, and the boys are all like making fun of the girls, like singing their "We're excited to go have our break" song, because I guess that existed. And then they're all saying goodbye to the teacher, and the Mally has a bunch of little like cardboard cutouts of canaries for some reason, and they fall everywhere, and she's all upset because all of her canaries are everywhere. It's just straight shenanigans. Through the movie. And then Velvet tells on her older sister, being like, because she's like, what are you going to do? The teacher's like, what are you guys going to do over your break? And Velvet's like, well, Edwina's going to go meet whatever the boy's name is she's going to go meet. And Edwina's like, I am never telling you anything ever again. Do not dare speak to me.
How dare you speak to me?
How dare you speak to me? And so they all are walking home, and then they kind of all like break off because Edwina ends up in, I think it's a library, or like a bookstore, but the bookstore also has birds in it. And so that's why they lose the one sister. She goes there, and then Edwina goes off to see a boy. And then Velvet, like the second she's alone, she picks up like a long grass blade and like uses it as a pretend crop, and is just like pretending to ride a horse down the road. And
okay.
Yeah. Very, I mean, she's 12, so like forgivable,
Okay,
but also a little weird. And she is going down the road, and there is a guy who is named Taylor, M.I. Taylor. And he is a drifter, and he's sitting on the side of the road, and Velvet just starts talking to him because it was the 40s, I guess, and things were safer then, and you talk to random drifters. And he was like, they just basically strike up a conversation, like, because he notices her riding and the fake horse, and he's like, you gotta take care of that horse, otherwise it's gonna go lame on you, or something like that. And then Velvet's like, you know things about horses? And like, this girl in this day and age would have been kidnapped so fast. But Taylor, I think, is a jockey, and so he was just poking fun at her. And then a gelding, like, who is definitely not a gelding in this movie. He is absolutely like at least 6 or 7 years old and like 16 hands. There's no way this horse is a gelding. But a gelding goes flying out of the one of the pastures nearby, and I don't remember the guy's name, but the guy who like owns the horses, he just got this horse off the track or something like that, or off the boat. I don't remember what he says, but basically he knows Velvet because Velvet like will walk this way, the long way home, so that she can see all the horses in the pasture. And he breaks free, and he clears the fence, and then he comes running towards her, and there's this like hilarious old green screen where she's standing and like waving as the horse like rears up and is like, arr! And then the older gentleman who owns the horse comes out and is like, how dare you let this young girl get almost trampled by a horse, and is just not impressed with Taylor. And she's like, but look at him, isn't he beautiful? And she's like petting the horse, and the horse is like, oh yeah. And he's like, this really pretty like chestnut horse with this like white stripe.
Is he a good boy?
He's a good boy. I love him. He's such a good horse actor. And
good. Wait, do you know the actual horse who played him?
His name was Saint Edward or King Charles, something like that. It was named after whatever king at the time.
That is precious, though.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And he was like a wild horse, or like mostly like a horse that no one thought was going to do anything. And so he fit the bill, because National Velvet's based off of a book. And so he fit the description of the horse in the book. And so they grabbed him. And then after the movie was concluded, the director, Clarence Brown, I think, gave him to Elizabeth Taylor. So she kept him for his entire life.
Aww.
And adorbs. But
that is adorbs.
I think it was Charles. I think it was Prince Charles or King Charles. No. King Charles? Anyway.
Edward?
It was
I thought it's the Edwardian era.
I think it might have been Edward. It was whatever the king at the time was in England. King.
Oh, maybe it was Charles. I don't know. I have no idea.
I bet I could Google it. But it was one of those two.
No idea.
But anyway. So the guy refers to the horse as a pirate because he's a knave and a rogue and doesn't think that this horse is worth it, because he just goes riding off and isn't tameable. And Velvet is like, no, he's not a pirate. I'm going to name him Pie. And just like is loving on this horse. And
oh my gosh.
the guy's like, well, I hope you tell your dad about Pie. And then said, tell Mr. Brown that I need something or other. And that triggers me, Taylor, to learning Velvet's last name, because he was looking for Mrs. Brown, because his dad's old journal, or like notebook, it was more of like a notebook, but his dad's old notebook had Mrs. Brown written in it with like the village name in England. And so he was kind of wandering around after all of this and goes to go look for her to be like, do you know my dad? Like, not like he doesn't have like a whole bunch of a background that we get, but clearly like he's trying to track down memories of his past kind of situation. And so Velvet's like, yeah, you should come with us. And so she more or less drags him to dinner, and they are asking him questions. And so Mr. Brown is sitting there with a newspaper in kind of that like quintessential like grumpy old man, and like, why are you this like gentleman following my daughter home, like just judgy, right? And Mrs. Brown keeps offering him food because he's clearly like a young boy who is just clearly starving. So she keeps trying to like give him more and more food, and he's like, no, I couldn't. And then she like hands him pudding, and he's like, oh, I guess I could. And like, it's really cute. And then he goes, they have a dog named, I think it's Jacob. I think the dog's name is Jacob. And the dog
That's a weird name for a dog.
And Jacob is like begging at the table. And so me, Taylor, like passes a little bit of food to Jacob, and Mr. Brown's like, we don't give Jacob food at the table. That's how he becomes a beggar. He can go figure out his own dinner. Right?
That's how he becomes fat.
Right. And so then me, Taylor's like, oops, sorry, didn't mean to. And everyone else is like rolling the eyes. And Velvet starts talking about races and stuff, and the horse that she saw, and Pie, and how beautiful he is, and how much she's in love with the horse. And Mr. Brown is like, clearly like this is every single day for him, and he's just like, what's it like being in love with a horse? And as he says that, Edwina comes home, and everyone's staring at her, and she's like, don't look at me kind of thing, and like goes upstairs because she doesn't want to talk about the fact that she was meeting with a boy. Mm-hmm. And then we cut to Mrs. Brown, who's sneaking a piece of food to Jacob, and then but because he's not paying attention. And the best part of this scene is that like every single one of the family, when Mr. Brown isn't paying attention, sneaks food to Jacob. And so like me, Taylor, is like slowly noticing everyone just giving food to the dog. And then right at the end, after they've agreed that me, Taylor, can stay the night and maybe work the sheep farm for some money before he moves on, we see Mr. Brown behind the newspaper is also sneaking food to Jacob. So like they try to give it like he acts stern, but he's just big old softy. Eventually we find out that Mia is a steeplechase jockey, and Velvet wants to go into the Grand National Steeplechase, but because she's a lady, she cannot. And and so we learn a little bit more about Mee's backstory, where he got into an accident when he was riding, and so it's made him like a little gun shy about getting back on a horse because he got hit. He got trampled over, like I think bones were broken, and so he's afraid of riding and hates horses. And so, but Velvet, completely smitten 12-year-old with horses, slowly like needles him down and is just like, but like, do you see how pretty Pie is? But like, he would be great, wouldn't he, in the Grand National? And he's like, this horse does not listen to anybody. Like, even if
I know how this story is gonna end.
Even if, yeah, quintessential horse color movie, right? Even if like he's got a good talent and he can jump, he doesn't listen, and therefore he's not going to be a great horse for the Grand National, and it's a fool's errand. And because
you gotta break that horse,
you gotta break
he's
that
not
horse.
gonna listen to anyone. No, I won't break him. He'll love me and he'll listen because he loves me. Sorry, go on.
You're not wrong. And then Pie, at one point, there's one scene where Pie like absolutely runs rampant in the small village. Like, they're trying, because like they've slowly convinced the owner, who I, for the life of me, can't remember what he's called, but like he slowly convinces him that, okay, maybe that Velvet, because he seems to only like Velvet, can at least make him like a usable horse and not worth a waste of the money that I spent on him. And he goes and he destroys the begonias. He like runs over the begonias and eats some of the plants out of the
begonias.
Yeah. I think that's literally a line in the movie.
Oh no.
And everyone is just annoyed with this horse that the town is going to hold a raffle to get rid of him. And so this raffle lends to Velvet winning the horse because no one actually wants this horse. So she puts her name in like a bajillion times, but she's also the only person that put her name in because no one wants the horse that's not going to listen to anybody. And she's super thrilled. And so then she's like, me, look, I have this horse. You can help me train for the Grand National. And he's like, do you have any money to put the horse into the Grand National? And she's like, well, no. And we kind of move the story away from Velvet for a minute, and we go to Mrs. Brown, so Velvet's mom. And Velvet's mom knew Me Taylor's dad because his dad was a trainer and taught Mrs. Brown, this is a wild extra story arc, taught Mrs. Brown how to swim. And she was a competitive swimmer for years before she settled down and chose a life of just vibing with her husband and having a family, even though she was apparently really, really good at swimming. And because I think this movie is supposed to be set in the 20s, but even then the 40s. But she won a bunch of money swimming across the English Channel because she came in first place and beat out a bunch of men too. So
this is indeed a side story.
It's such a random extra like aside that we learn. Like, it's mentioned a couple of times because like Velvet, like they don't, it's not completely out of nowhere, but like Velvet brings it up and is just like, hey, can we talk about it? Because you know how kids like will poke their parents about things that they've done. And then also Mrs. Brown just happens to have all this extra money, and that's how they like fund a lot of stuff, is that she just won a bunch of money. So she's like, okay, I'll give you money so that Pie can race in the Grand National. And so then me and Velvet get to go to the Grand National, and me hires a professional jockey despite Velvet's protests because Velvet's a girl and the jockey is a man. And Velvet feels that like Pie doesn't like him, and when they were practicing with the jockey was just like, he's okay, but like I don't think he's gonna win. And Velvet's like, no, he can win. So she fires the jockey without telling me, and she cuts off her hair and tells him that she puts on I think they're called jockey silks, and is like, I'm gonna ride them. And Me's like, no, you don't, like, you've literally never like professionally rode in your life. And Velvet's like, no, we're gonna do it. And then
this is a way to get killed,
right? But as you suspect, they win the Grand National because it's a horse girl movie. And
it could have gone one of two ways. It could have been a tragic horse girl movie. They could have had a terrible accident. And she like broke her leg and he has to be put down or something.
No, this is
it could have gone that way too. Okay, that's good.
Happy ending, and that she does fall off the mount though. So there is like but that's how she they discover she's a girl, because like her helmet comes off, and then they're like, oh, she's a woman, and she won the Grand National. And so Velvet becomes a media sensation, and they offer her the ability to go to Hollywood and like transport Pie across the sea to be filmed. But Velvet, having communed with Pie and being like, he doesn't like all this attention, like it was a lot for him, because part of the reason she fell off of him was like there's a lot of cameras at him, like he wouldn't do well in Hollywood. So she says no, and her dad's like, but think of the money. And she's like, but Pie, he's a good boy, and he wouldn't understand the scrutiny. He's a good boy. And so Velvet's...
My question is, though, is he really a good boy?
I mean,
if
he's
he only
fast
listens
boy.
to one person, does that really make him good?
They're all good boys.
Okay, fair. Fine.
Then, so Velvet decides to stay home in England for her and Pie. And me, having kind of gotten through his fear of everything, this was kind of like a healing experience for him, decides he's going to go back to being a jockey.
So Pie's a therapy horse.
Pie's a therapy horse.
There we go. I guess that does put him back in good boy territory.
And Velvet is sad because me didn't tell her that he was leaving, and Mrs. Brown just says like, hey, it's time for him to go. He's a drifter and he wants to go back to his old life, and you chose to stay here and he wants to go, like that. You gotta let them do that. And she's like, but he didn't even know that his dad trained you to swim across the English Channel. And she's like, all right, you can tell him that. So she gets on Pie and like goes, there's this like beautiful scene of English countryside of her like riding through the English countryside to catch up to him on atop of a sunset hill with like,
how did she know where he was?
There's like one road in and out of this town.
Okay, fair.
And then she like walks him further out of town astride Pie and like tells him about his father, and that's kind of how it ends. And that's National Velvet.
And he doesn't decide to stay?
It's left ambiguous. They're like walking. So the movie starts with me walking into town and leaves with me walking out of town with Taylor and Velvet. Or I keep thinking Elizabeth Taylor. Velvet and Pie. So it's implied, but like they kind of leave it open because the movie's already 2.5 hours long, and that's where it ends. And I don't know how the book ends.
You can't have more. You simply can't have more. That is a long movie, though.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think she just goes home in the book based on the quick Google search I just did. But
okay.
Yeah, but it just kind of leaves it open to interpretation. I think they made a sequel, and from what I understand, it's like 20 years later and like ridiculous and like unintentionally funny. It's one of those movies that thinks it's serious, but when you're watching it, it's kind of like Airplane, where you're like,
oh no,
what's happening? But I have not watched. I think it's called International Velvet. And
oh gosh, that sounds like a 90s movie, not a 40s movie.
I wonder when it came out. I know Elizabeth Taylor was much, much older when International Velvet came out. 1978 was when that one came out.
Wow. Okay.
And now I'm reading the plot.
Now it does kind of make sense for that name.
Oh, Dip. Mr. and Mrs. Brown get killed in a car crash. What the heck? Okay.
This is the tragic horse story.
This is the tragic.
I bet Pie dies in this one too.
I don't know.
Wait, since Elizabeth Taylor was in it, was Pie, or the horse who played Pie, in it too, since he was owned by her at that point?
this is a different horse in this picture.
Oh,
like,
no.
Pi is clearly like a chestnut with like a white stripe down his face. This cow horse is a bay with no stripe whatsoever. Like,
oh, no.
they didn't even try. Like, if Pi was dead because, like, 30 years went by, fair enough. They didn't even try to find a horse that looks similar. He's so dark.
I mean, maybe the story is something completely different. Like, not necessarily sequel of this story, but just, like, in the same universe and maybe some same characters.
Maybe.
So the horse could be different.
Oh, okay. It's about Velvet Brown's daughter. So Velvet dies in a car crash. Oh no, I'm going to stop reading this. Okay. That's the end of that.
Wow.
That's Velvet. National Velvet. National Velvet, delightful horse girl movie, is a movie made in the 40s, so the plot's a little slow, but it's still cute.
That's okay. It follows every horse girl movie I've ever heard of. Mm-hmm.
And it's cute, and it's got fun, cute, like, family scenes, and the establishing shots and, like, the B-roll of England's really pretty, and it's just a fun movie.
Do you think this is, like, the original horse girl movie? Do you think there were any others before this?
I mean, Black Beauty existed. I don't know.
Was that earlier than this?
I don't know. I'm Googling it now.
Wasn't that a book, maybe? I don't know.
Well, so was National Velvet.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Black Beauty is an 1877 novel.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm going to go with Black Beauty until proven otherwise.
Okay, that's fair. I did not know that horse girls were a thing that early.
As long as there have been horses, there have been horse girls.
Fair.
Speaking as a reformed horse girl.
I'm glad we pulled you out of that pit.
Original horse movie. First ever motion picture featured a horse and a rider. Yes, I did know that.
Common knowledge.
Common knowledge.
Come on.
That was brought up in Nope, with the first ever. I don't know if you've seen Nope. It's a kind of like a thriller movie, but it's really good. Anyway, I'm gonna stop on this rabbit hole and end up.
All right.
I'll tell you more about it later.
Okay. Maybe you can tell it to me on the podcast someday.
I'm gonna tell you about Nope eventually because that's a good movie too.
Okay.
Anyway.
Anyway, I think we need to move on. Move on. Kind of like horses, except it's a cow, but they're not the same.
They're not
what
even,
am I saying?
They're not even the same, like, stomach. They're hind end fermenters versus ruminants.
But they're all large animals.
They are large animals. This is true.
Okay, here we go. Anyway. What do we do now?
Quote.
Okay.
Tell me things. Tell me a funny story.
I'll tell you things. Well, I have to tell you the quote, and it's not a funny story. You ready?
I'm so ready.
All right. Just beyond the velvet curtain of your dark and empty room, all the gutters run with silver underneath the light of the moon.
I think I know what that is.
Really?
It sounds really familiar.
Ooh. I'd be so happy if you did know what it is.
Okay. Then maybe I don't know what it is because we have very different obscure tastes, but I will think very hard.
It is a song. It is a song. If that was not clear.
I assumed based on the bounciness.
The rhyme
and the
structure.
Rhymes.
Cool. All right. Well, while you ponder if you know this,
okay.
I'll tell you about the actual thing that I'm bringing.
Please do.
Which unfortunately also really has nothing to do with velvet. I was talking to my mom before all of this, and I said, I think I let the word velvet down. I don't think I'm doing it justice.
I mean, I just picked a movie with the girl's name being Velvet, so I could talk about a horse girl movie, so.
That's okay. So, I mean, mine's even worse than that.
No.
You'll see.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about the movie Moulin Rouge.
I think that's appropriate. 1000%.
The reason I'm talking about it is because, well, two reasons. One, it's part of the, quote, Red Curtain trilogy by Baz Luhrmann, which is the Romeo and Juliet, this one, Moulin Rouge, and then another one called Strictly Ballroom. But of course, like, red curtains on stages are usually made of velvet. So that's one reason. The other reason is the main character is named Satine, and satine is another type of fabric, but it's not velvet.
The Google definition said it was made out of satin with pill on one side. So I think
yes, but satine does not have that. It's a completely different type of fabric of production. So
I think
it has
Moulin
no
Rouge
pile.
brings thoughts of luxury, and what is luxury if not velvet? So I think
That's
it's
true.
fine.
I'm sure the costumes somewhere have velvet in them. So I brought it for the costumes. We can say that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Perfect. So I didn't realize how early this film came out. It came out in 2001. I thought it was way later than that, but oh well.
I mean, I have only seen parts of it, so...
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
I've never
my
watched
goodness.
it all the way through.
Oh, you should watch it all the way through. It's really good. It makes me cry. It's so good.
No. Okay, we'll definitely have to watch it then.
Okay. So it's a little convoluted, just a bit. And it's also a musical, so you know how musicals are convoluted, but they really don't actually have a whole lot of structure. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
And what else about it? I guess it's considered technically like a jukebox musical where they take popular songs that have already been made and just like rework them into the story,
I
essentially.
didn't know that was what that was called, but that's cool.
Yeah, that's what that's called.
Cool.
Like Mamma Mia is one of those too, with all the ABBA songs that
Across
are
the universe.
part of the story.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, it's that genre of musical.
Okay.
And I guess we'll just jump right on into it here. And I'm sorry if I get some plot points wrong. It's been a while since I did actually see it.
I wouldn't know anyway.
I'll just make it up then. This is my retelling of it. All right. So first off, we have our main character whose name is Christian, played by Ewan McGregor, and he falls in love with Satine, who is played by Nicole Kidman. So really good cast, I would say. Real nice. So it starts in Paris in the year 1900, and I was going to call him Ewan McGregor, but we'll just call him Christian because that's his name in the story.
Fair enough.
Christian has just arrived in Grand Paris, and he is a writer, and he wants to be a bohemian and live the bohemian lifestyle. So he lives in this like quarter of Paris called the Montmartre, which is, have you been to Paris?
I have not. I've been in a plane that was taking off from Paris. So I've been in the Paris airport, and that's as much as Paris as I've ever been in.
Well, you should go to Paris, but basically the Montmartre is this really famous part of Paris that's like has very iconic architecture, and it's like where all the artsy types of Parisians lived in the early 1900s, essentially. So it's a real historic place for the things that it has, essentially.
Okay.
One of the things in this area is the Moulin Rouge, which of course is like this spectacular nightclub kind of place. So that is obviously where the film gets its name. Anyway, going back to Christian. So it opens where he's like telling the story of this whole thing, and then we like get into the story, and it's the rest of the film. You understand. And
one of those chestnuts.
Right, one of those. So he's like sitting in his apartment. This is like part of the story, not him outside of the story. This is getting confusing. Anyway. So he's in his new apartment, and he's like, gosh, I'm a writer and I want to like do artsy things here, and like how am I gonna do this? And then suddenly he meets his neighbors, and if I'm remembering correctly, I feel like they fall through a hole in the ceiling, but I might be completely wrong on that,
as one does.
Forgive me if I am. But anyway, so one of them, who I think is based on a real person, is Toulouse-Lautrec.
Okay.
I think he is real, and he's played by John Leguizamo.
Excellent.
I think it's great. Toulouse and his friends are making this big show that they're like rehearsing when they meet Christian. And they convince Christian, who's a writer, to help them finish it because they couldn't figure out where the hell this show was going, essentially. It's called Spectacular Spectacular. And I don't know what the actual plot of it is. At this point, it really has no plot. But they incorporate like the Sound of Music, like The Hills Are Alive in it somehow. And then there's like someone who's bicycling. And it's like this ridiculous, like, they have no idea what's going on. It's more of like a circus act kind of thing, it seems like, at this stage.
It's giving like Cirque du Soleil.
Cirque du Soleil, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some shenanigans, I guess, that happen around it. But anyway, they come up with a plan where they're going to sell this Spectacular Spectacular to Harold Ziegler, who is the owner of the Moulin Rouge.
That's a great name.
Harold Ziegler. Yes.
Ziegler. Okay.
Ziegler. So they're like, well, let's go to the Moulin Rouge and do some research and see if we can get in.
Quotation mark.
I believe before they do that, they make Christian drink absinthe, which he's never had before.
Okay.
And you know, like absinthe is called like the green fairy because it's supposed to be like hallucinogenic.
Right.
Apparently, it's not actually. That was a lie made up by people who didn't want people to drink absinthe.
As opposed to being made up by who?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
But anyway.
So Ewan McGregor has hallucinations.
Yes. They meet the Green Fairy and then they go to the...
Isn't the Green Fairy Ozzy Osbourne?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's like one of the few scenes I have seen of this movie.
The laugh for the Green Fairy is how he's credited. Yes. Yes, you're right about that.
It's one of the only things I know about this movie.
It's a good thing to know, I guess. So anyway, they finally get to the Moulin Rouge and it's like chaos in there. Ziegler is kind of like, even though he's the owner, he's also like the MC for everything and he announces all like the different acts and things like that. And there's all like the cabaret dancers who are there and they all dance to like different versions of the pop songs that they've licensed essentially. This whole section, it's called Ziegler's Rap Medley.
Ziegler's Rap Melody.
Which I think is just so funny. But that's how it's titled in the soundtrack. So, all these like miraculous dancers come out and they like do all these fancy like cabaret dance things, I guess. And Christian's like, oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like this. My poor absinthe-filled brain, I can't comprehend. And then the big final act, the like prime courtesan of the Moulin Rouge is Satine. So she comes out, does her little dance, and immediately Christian falls in love with her because, of course.
I mean, who wouldn't?
Right. Now, Ziegler, as the owner, he's always trying to like get sponsors and business and everything. So he has found some lesser duke of some country somewhere who wants to like be a sponsor for the Moulin Rouge. Okay. But in order to do that, he needs Satine to like go visit with the duke and like woo him and, you know, spend time with him and convince him that it's a good thing to invest in, essentially. So that's what she's been preparing for after the show. Okay. Now, somehow, Lautrec, like, gets to Satine before Ziegler or the Duke does. Okay. And he's like, I need you to hear our pitch for our show. And, like, she thought, oh, I thought I was just, like, entertaining the Duke. I didn't know I was hearing a pitch for anything. And Toulouse, like, kind of worms Christian's way in, essentially. Is like, yes, he's the Duke, but he also is a writer. And, like, kind of makes some lies to make it seem like Christian is the Duke. So Satine meets Christian up in her fancy bedroom, boudoir, I don't know. It's called the Elephant Room because it's like they have this giant elephant on top of the Moulin Rouge and they like can go and sit inside its head basically.
That's really cool, actually.
It looks really cool on set. I am not doing a great job of describing it. It's like very like kind of Indian inspired, I would say.
Okay.
But like very lush fabrics, and there's like pillows everywhere, and the walls are painted gold, and everything is like so shiny. So there's probably some velvet pillows in there, I would assume. It's real fancy. Anyway, so they go in, and Christian is like talking with Satine, and he's like actually interesting, and she didn't expect him to be interesting because she was expecting some boring duke. And he like starts to pitch like, hey, here's our big thing. And then like Toulouse comes in, and he like is doing the Hills Are Alive bit, and Satine is like getting into it as well, and she's like, yeah, I can really see how this would work really well. And then Ziedler realizes like, oh no, it's not the Duke who's in there. Who's in there? What's going on? But Ziedler also kind of like doesn't like the Duke. He just wants the Duke's money, but he doesn't really care what happens to him, I guess.
Sure.
So he kind of, Ziedler somehow gets on everybody's side of like, you know what? Let's all bamboozle the Duke and get his money. So he convinces everybody, including Satine, to start pitching this whole show, even though like Satine just heard about the show herself, starts pitching the show to the Duke, who then comes in. And like they're literally just making this up on the spot of what the story is. And apparently they decided now that it is set in India. So lots of Indian inspiration here.
Sure. Okay.
Take with that what you will.
Bollywood.
There we go. You know, yes. There we go. So
I
anyway,
live for a good
there's some
Bollywood.
So they say like their main character is the Maharaja, who's like the prince or whatever, and there's a princess who's supposed to be married to him, but he's evil and nobody likes him. But then there's like some poor fiddler, I believe it is, or like a musician, something like that, who she loves instead. And it's basically like an exact parallel to what's actually going on in the Moulin Rouge movie.
Got it.
Where,
Okay.
like the girl is being forced to be in love with someone who she doesn't actually like, and she likes this other guy instead.
Sure. Okay.
But anyway, the Duke's like, yes, I see the potential, and I would love to have my name as the sponsor for this show. So it gets a green light. Everyone celebrates, and they're like, we're going to make Satine into a real actress, no longer just a cabaret dancer. And they're set to like transform the entire Moulin Rouge. It's not just a nightclub anymore. They're going to have like a real theater in there with like real lights and real seats and everything. And like they're getting this poor girl's hopes up that she's going to be like this real famous actress. And then of course she realizes that Christian was not in fact the Duke, but she does kind of like him. So she's like, maybe I'll see you again sometime. And he's like, I think we will. Oh my goodness.
No.
And there's a few different scenes of like him singing like, yes, she's the one, and her being like, maybe one day I'll break out of this place. And then she also like is thinking about him at the same time, but like has her own dreams and aspirations. And then the Duke, he also puts this like kibosh on their relationship of like, I will sponsor this, but only if I'm the only one who's allowed to spend time with Satine. Like,
oh my God.
She cannot see anyone else ever.
Can you imagine?
And Ziedler, can you even imagine? Oh my God. So Ziedler's like, I guess fine, whatever. However, Christian, being one of the writers of the play, is allowed to see her under the guise of we're practicing her lines. So they like not sneak around. They're like very obviously spending time together, but it like every time someone like comes in, it's like they have the script and they're like saying what's being written essentially, or like reworking something, or like she's always like practicing the dances or whatnot. So like they're getting away with it for now. And then they have this naturally. They have this big scene where they like commit their love to each other. It's inside the elephant head again, which that's like their sacred place of like, this is just for us. And the one song in the movie that I believe is not actually a pop song, it was like written just for this. It's called Come What May.
Okay.
Basically it's their secret code of like, whatever happens, we're going to be together. We just need to like sing this to each other and know that we still love each other. And it's like really sweet, like their little secret code there. And the Duke is kind of starting to get a little bit suspicious that it's not just them practicing lines, that they're
Shocked.
actually spending time together.
This man's really bright, isn't he?
Right? No. So he decides that he's going to ask her out to dinner one night.
Oh, God.
So
Okay.
she is committed to dinner with the Duke. Obviously, she doesn't want to go.
Naturally.
Obviously. And actually, she ends up not being able to go because she gets sick because she has tuberculosis.
What?
Because why not?
Sure. That was not the turn I thought we were going to take.
Well, here we are. She has tuberculosis, and she does the wonderful, I have a white napkin, I'm going to cough up blood on it to tell us that she has tuberculosis.
Every time anyone coughs in a movie, they die. So is she going to die? Because I'm really sad now.
Shh.
Oh, okay.
We're not there yet.
Oh, God. Okay. My body's not ready.
Become ready. So anyway, Ziedler he is also just now learning that she has tuberculosis. Apparently, like the stage manager, costume director lady, she's known for a long time, and she's been like trying to get medicine for Satine, but it's tuberculosis and they don't have antibiotics, so of course she's not getting better. But finally Ziedler learns the truth and like she realizes she doesn't have long to live, so he actually does care about Satine. Like, he's not just like this evil corporation. He like actually cares about his workers.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, obviously not providing them with great health care, but
Yeah, well.
no, but I think he kind of is like the father figure essentially. And he's like, you poor girl, what can I do to help? And she's like, you have to tell the Duke that I can't meet with him, but you also can't tell him that I'm dying because then he'll take away his sponsorship for the play. And she really wants the play to still happen as long as she's able to. So Ziedler agrees, and he goes and talks to the Duke, and he's like, she's gone to confession. And the Duke's like, well, why would she do that? And Ziedler's like, because she felt like she was unpure and she just wanted to make every time with you seem like her first time. And then we have this awful Madonna song that they've reworked and it's Like a Virgin.
Oh, God. Okay.
So awful. So awful. I think it's rated PG. I don't think this is like actually a gross movie, but
sure,
anyway.
but still.
It's implied. So anyway, the Duke is satisfied with that, and he's all excited, like, oh, she cares that much about me? And so he's on cloud nine. He thinks Satine's in love with him, and he's won.
Oh, God,
He has not won, though. Also, Satine, because of her condition, she's like, I have to break it off with Christian. I can't keep, like, stringing him along like this. So she calls Christian in, and is like, I can't see you anymore. And Christian, of course, thinks it's because of the Duke. And so, like, there's just all these classic musical misunderstandings. Yep. Exactly. So everybody's sad because nobody knows what's going on because no one will communicate their actual feelings with each other.
It's almost like if you talk to each other, things would be less stressful.
Exactly. But no, they can't do that. So anyway, everyone is sad, but they sing the Queen song, The Show Must Go On, in a very operatic style. And it's so amazing. I love it so much. And basically it's the night of the opening night of the show, and Satine is like out there doing her thing, but Christian breaks in because he's like, you know what, I've had enough of this. I'm just gonna declare my love for her regardless of what the Duke says, and even if he gets rid of the funding for the show, I'm gonna steal her away and make her a real star somewhere else. She's gonna come with me for sure. So anyway, he like breaks onto the stage basically, and Ziedler, during the show, he was like still somewhat of like an MC for it, which is weird for a play, but whatever.
It's fine.
And he like is trying to like improvise on the spot of like, oh, and now we have another rival sitar player who is here.
Rival sitar player. Oh my God.
And the Maharaja is like still trying to take Satine away, and they're like the Duke is in the audience, and they're like communicating to each other and the Duke like all at the same time, like referring to him as the Maharaja so that everyone else in the theater still thinks the play is going on, but they're like talking to the Duke directly. It's very unusual and kind of uncomfortable, I think, if you were actually in the audience.
Sure,
because everything has gone awry, and like it doesn't sound scripted at all. Like they're not doing a good job of actually putting on a play.
Yeah.
But they're doing a good job of putting on a romantic movie. So it's working for us.
Yeah. Understood.
And the Duke like stands up and he like demands like, this is not what I wanted. This is not what the Maharaja deserves. And at the end of the play, they sing the Come What May song. And so they realize like, yes, we do still love each other. It's all okay. And then the Duke like storms out. Everything is in ruin and the play is canceled basically. And the Moulin Rouge closes down and Satine dies. But you never see her die. You don't really see the end. Like really all that you see of the end is just them singing the Come What May, and then it's like cut scene, Moulin Rouge is in tatters. And then we cut back to Christian in present day. Well, not present day, but writer Christian writing about this experience.
No.
And he like just sums up his thoughts of like, she was perfect and I loved her, but such a strong love must be fleeting, or, you know, something cheesy like that. But it's really cute, really sweet, and like kind of outrageous, but it makes you cry right at the end. Right there at the end. So that is what I brought for Velvet, with nothing to do with Velvet.
I think it had lots to do with Velvet. I feel like Moulin Rouge brings to mind exactly what you talk about, and I think that's fine.
I think so too. Well, I think you should watch it. I really do.
Okay.
Because even if just for the visuals, it's so pretty. Like, even though it was made in 2001, it started filming in 1999, I think, but it took them a long time to get licensings for all the songs, so it came out in 2001.
Sure. Okay.
But like, it's very well filmed. It doesn't really seem like an old 2000s movie. So I guess to its credit, good job.
Good job, guys. You did
did great. Perfect. So that's all I have to say about that.
Love it.
Would you like my quote again?
I would love your quote again.
Perfect. Let me pull it right back up here. Just beyond the velvet curtain of your dark and empty room, all the gutters run with silver underneath the light of the moon.
Is it the Cat Empire?
It is the Cat Empire! Oh my gosh, you know it!
It's that Australian ska band, right?
Yes!
Yeah, okay.
I'm so excited that you know this. Yes! This is a win for me. Do you know the song, or would you like me to tell you the song?
You can tell me about the song, but...
Okay, it's called Daggers Drawn.
Okay.
Yes, oh, I'm so happy.
Yeah, I had a ska moment in high school, and then occasionally my ska Spotify playlist will pull up random things, and I think that's how I ran into them.
I see. I never had a ska moment. I just had a Cat Empire moment.
Okay, fair.
To be honest, I'm still in my Cat Empire moment. I still love them.
That's fair. I like the music I've heard from them. I haven't heard a lot of their discography, but...
I would say they are definitely moving away from like ska. They're much more like Latin Australian pop.
Okay.
I don't know how to. I would not call it ska anymore.
Okay.
But
they were ska, right?
Yes,
For like a hot second. Okay.
Their first several albums, I would definitely say were ska.
Okay.
But they always, I mean, they still have like the big trumpets horn section, which is kind of like the hallmark of ska, like throw a trumpet in there. But now it's like, it just seems a lot more like polished and less punk, if that makes sense. But that's like kind of the vibe that I want. So it's perfect for me.
Perfect. Love it. I am so happy that I knew what this was.
I am so happy too. Oh my gosh. Congratulations. All right. Well, I have the biggest smile on my face now, so that's great.
Oh, good.
You've made my day.
Hooray. What now? Oh, we should ask Generator. Lovely Generator, would you like to roll us a new word?
I suppose I will, in spite of your earlier infraction.
Yeah, she's mad at me.
No, Stephanie, it's okay. The next word is panic.
Do you think she picked the word panic to make me panic?
Maybe. It's a bit of a threat.
I feel like I'm being threatened.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna end this podcast now.
Okay, that's a great voice you have going on right now.
I'm just a little guy.
Sounds like the computer was reaching out and strangling you, so
I find
perfect.
your lack of faith disturbing. Thanks. That's the end of the podcast. Thanks for listening. Hopefully I don't get murdered by our AI who rolls our words for us. And if you enjoyed us or had at least a little bit of a laugh as our retelling of Velvet adjacent things,
I can't get over yours. The original horse girl. Sorry, go on.
Feel free to share us with a friend and be like, hey, these two weirdos are kind of fun. And yeah, I think that's it. So thanks for listening. And as always, I've been Stephanie.
And I've been Allison.
And this is Nerd of the Week. Don't let Big Wall get in your way.
You almost forgot how to say it, didn't you?
I did not. I just hiccuped.
Okay.
You don't have to believe me. Bye.